Okay, so a couple of things I want to just go over, excuse me, before we get started. Number one, the small group or the ethical decisions assignment that we did that you guys turned in on Sunday or before. What was your feeling about that? Is that a reasonable assignment if we were to do that every week?
I think so.
Okay, it's not too long, but it's enough to require some work. Is that about a fair, accurate? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was going to say, I would prefer to not have a paper every week. I mean, this isn't my only class. But.
Right. Well, the thing is that we're doing videos every week. So how about if I was to, you have to do 8, but you choose which weeks you do I'm going to expect you to annotate the video every week and participate in the group discussion, but whether you write it out or not, 8 over the course of the semester, your choice.
And we've already done one.
We've already done one, so you'd have 7 left. So what I'll do is I'll set it up so that it drops, or that it just takes the 7 highest, which is the ones you do, and it ignores the ones you don't.
Would it be worth it to do all of them?
Well, what I would say is, if you got a score that you didn't like on one, if you do, so if I'm asking for 8 and you do 9, it's going to take the 8 highest. So that way it's a benefit to you. If your grade is a little bit low, that's a way to make up some points. Is that okay? Does that work a little bit for you, Tanner?
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, cool.
Appreciate it.
Hey, that's how I work. Did anybody have any questions about grades or comments or feedback? Okay. So that being the case, as I sent an email out this morning, and I apologize that it didn't register in my brain that even though I've realized that I'm asking questions that have a multiple choice element that didn't have the multiple choice parts of it, I got that fixed, but I only got it fixed this morning. So it's in there, but I apologize for not having it ready before everybody really started doing work on their questions and things like that. So if you chose one of the multiple choice questions and didn't see the answers, but you kind of came up with an answer, that is okay for today. I think that's only reasonable. Okay, I will fix that from now on. But for today, if you had already come up with an answer, let's go with your answer rather than what the book had. Is everybody okay with that? I also apologize. Oh, sorry.
Can you repeat that one more time? I didn't really hear that.
Okay, so in the past, when you had the student list, there were a lot of questions that referred to multiple choice where the choices were deleted. I only realized this morning that I forgot to fix that for chapter 3. So if you go into the student guide for this week, I replaced that so that those multiple choice options are there. But I did that this morning. So the reality is that a lot of you probably prepared for class today without those and might have come up with your own answer outside of what the multiple choice is. So for today, if you did that, go with your answer. Don't worry about the multiple choice unless you feel comfortable answering it with the multiple choice.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's get started. And I was also a little late posting the stuff with who got credit for today. Again, I apologize for that. Okay, so we are going to be going off of chapter 3 through 3.2, which was about stakeholders, okay? And I think this is the first one that we've done that had a significant and clear business connection. Up to this point, it's really been theoretical philosophy stuff. Today is the first time we're really talking about business and trying to pull some of that ethics that we have talked about into the business setting. Okay, so having said that, let me do this. I didn't want to do that. All right, Sam, you're up first today.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I decided to start with number one, which of the following are Starbucks stakeholders. I would say all of the above are stakeholders. When the book talks about stakeholders, it includes customers, clients, employees, shareholders, so on and so forth. And so even though like milk producers and these other ones don't seem like they would have anything to do with Starbucks, the thing is a lot of milk producers have to change the way their company runs in order to provide products that Starbucks wants to endorse. And so they become reliant on Starbucks and the revenue they make from selling to Starbucks in order to keep the company atop. This includes like coffee and tea growers and these other companies that rely on Starbucks to keep them employed.
Okay, so these might not be primary stakeholders, but they might be secondary stakeholders. I mean, Starbucks does use milk and milk products, but you might not normally think of that. You think of Starbucks as a coffee or tea company. But there's all of these additional industries that can be impacted by Starbucks practices. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, why is that such a big deal? Why did the book take so much time to talk about Starbucks closing to do sensitivity training? What was the point of all of this? Was it to make Starbucks look good as a socially or ethically sensitive company?
Well, I'm sure that played a little bit of a part, but it's a real life example in which we saw that in this case it was racism and how a company deals with that and the effects it has on the community, on the employees, and just everything involving that company and the effects of that.
So them closing down for one day in order to do this training meant what was happening during that day for Starbucks?
No sales.
No sales, right? And most of the time, Starbucks is one of those companies that's open, if not 24/7, at least close to 365. This is not one of the days they anticipated being closed. So what? Like you said, there were no sales. So what?
It's money. A lot of companies, it's day in, day out profit.
Okay, so number one, Starbucks wasn't making any money by being closed. They were making no sales. Okay, what else? Somebody else. What else does it mean that Starbucks was closed?
By closing down to address the problem, to do this training.
Okay.
Especially with the media watching, you know, they need to do something significant because they knew immediately that could have just, the media could have just frenzy over it.
Okay.
And they tried, but it really, I don't think, I think it was kibosh because of the way they handled it.
Okay. Megan?
I'm Winter.
Oh, sorry, Winter. Sorry.
They, like the fact that they shut down, like they sacrificed like a lot of money in that day, I feel like. Because was it like, I don't remember, was it all the locations that shut down? Yeah, so they sacrificed like a lot of money that they could have made that one day. So that kind of showed what they were willing to do to like gain the trust of their consumers back.
Okay, so they did an action specifically intended not just to change their business practice, but to address customer concerns.
On
up, then it costs them a lot more money because they're paying people to go to the training.
So not only did they not make any money, they lost money because they paid for people who were not producing any value for the company. Okay, excellent. One more thing, and it has to do a little bit with this A, B, C, and D. What else happened?
They set an example of what type of ethics they follow, because in the reading it was talking about there's a minimum law of ethics. So Starbucks didn't have to do that, but they did it to keep their reputation and to show that they're still a good company too.
Excellent. That idea of the ethical minimum, probably the ethical minimum, now remember, not the legal minimum, the ethical minimum would have been probably to require training for the people or the employees specifically involved in the incident. Okay, you guys have to go to diversity training, right? That would have been an ethical minimum, or maybe that specific location and all the employees there. But Starbucks chose to go instead for an ethical maximum. Anybody and everybody associated with the Starbucks brand is going to be involved in this. Okay, so we've already talked about that they lost money for no sales. We talked about that they lost money because they paid their employees to do this. What other cost did Starbucks experience that has to do with this?
Overstock.
Overstock, right? Think about this. Every company, or Starbucks expects that every single day they will go and burn through a certain amount of product, right? Because we're getting rid of it, so then we can order, and we need to have fresh stuff in our stores. So we're going to have this constant chain of deliveries coming to bring you new product, and we have a day where none of that happens. Now, you would think one day that's not going to be a big deal, but there's going to be a ripple, right? Well, we didn't need that milk order, so we're not going to buy it. Now all of a sudden, milk producers have an entire day's worth of product that they can't sell because it's not fresh anymore, right? We've got we have plastic cover manufacturers that have produced because they were expecting every lot to already be sold, and now they have an extra lot. Now, what's the difference between D and A in this question?
The milk products are gonna expire, while the plastic cover manufacturers, they can keep their product.
Right. I'm going to have to store it somehow, or even worse, I already have it on the road heading to the location, and now they don't want it, so I'm going to have to pay to bring it back, or Starbucks is going to have to find some place to store it. And if you've ever worked in any kind of a fast food place, there's very limited storage. It's designed for rapid turnover, right? They don't have a place to put 5 extra boxes of materials unless everybody's walking around it every time they do something. Okay, so Starbucks making this decision, and this is one of the things that the book was trying to get at. Starbucks made a decision that was beneficial in their mind to them, both in terms of, if we want to be cynical, the PR value. What else might have encouraged or led Starbucks to make the decision that they made?
Their clients are everybody, so even having a chance of segregation would be bad for business.
Okay, because it's their identity. They realize that this could be incredibly offensive to a large number of their customers, which would hurt business. Anything else?
Employees.
Why else might Starbucks? This is what the employees want. Okay, go for it.
I was going to say, I think ultimately them taking that action saves them more money in the long run. It says that they settled for an undisclosed amount of money with those customers. And so I think by investing some education, they're saving money in the long run.
Okay. And again, if we remember, one of the things I've been saying for a while is what? A business does not exist in and of itself. What is it made of? People. And those people make decisions. Okay? And so one of the realities is this might be what a large number of the employees or the identity or culture of Starbucks says, this is not who we are. This is not who we aspire to be as participants in this organization. So we've got to make sure that that's not happening, because that's not, I don't want to be associated with that type of behavior. Possibly. Okay? It's a combination of a lot of different things. Haley, were you saying something?
No.
I know that Tanner was talking and somebody else had something that they were saying, but I didn't catch who it was. Okay? You'll hold on to that thought. Okay? Andrew, you're up next.
We'll do number 3.
Okay? Question number 3. Okay?
So which of the following is considered the most important internal stakeholder of the corporation? A, marketing directors, B, board of directors, C, executive management, D, government affairs office. I picked the board of directors.
Okay? Why?
In the book, it just describes how it's responsible for defining and evaluating the ongoing mission. They oversee decisions about the mission and direction of the business. They make decisions on products and services, such as markets to operate in, and they determine the salary for all the senior officers. And then one of the most important things that they do is they also decide and hire the chief executive officer, the CEO.
Okay.
So all those, I think, all those objectives of them can add up to them being the most important internal stakeholder.
Okay. Okay. Excellent response. So what then is the difference? I'm going to ask somebody else because that was a great answer. What's the difference between a board of directors and executive management? Just going to let everybody think about this one for a second. What is the difference between the board of directors and the executive management?
Well, the board of directors don't actually execute any of the managing, like they just kind of come up with the mission and things like that. And then they hire the CEO and it kind of goes on down the line where the managers are the ones who are actually going to be executing the mission and making sure that it's going how the board of directors want the business to be ran.
Okay, so the idea is the executive management are the ones that actually take the vision, mission, and ideas of the board of directors and make them happen. Okay, the board of directors does not do anything with the day-to-day operations of the business. So what is their real primary, I mean, Andrew, I agree completely. I mean, that's what the text said, but let's put that into layman's terms. Let's put that into normal language that we use. What is the function of the board of directors? What do they do? Because it says that they're, according to this, it's the most important stakeholder. So what do they do?
If I had to say it really simply, I'd just say that they guide the executive management and determine the direction of executive management.
That's a great way of saying it. They guide and direct internal management. And they evaluate how well the executive management and down the road to the managers and then to the frontline employees, how well are they living up to the vision and mission that the board gave them? So another way to maybe phrase this, the board of directors is supposed to serve as the conscience of the company. Are we doing what we wanted? It's not a question of how we do it, it's why we do it. And does the how and the why connect? That's the value of the board of directors. They're the ones that get to decide if the actions of the executive management and down the road, is that in line with the ethics that the board of directors expects?
So with that, would you also say that the board of directors kind of upholds the accountability of executive management?
That's exactly it, because that's what because they're evaluating what did you do versus what we expect or what you ought to be doing. So for example, so the board of directors of Starbucks would probably expect that CEO to come in front of them and explain, you just chose to take the entire company offline for a day. Why did you do that? Right? And they would expect the CEO to explain to them, well, I got information from this person and this person and this person, and as a group, we decided this was the best way to act. And then the board of directors would say, okay, we can live with that. Or, nope, that was a bad call. We need to get rid of you. Okay, excellent. All right, Haley, we're going to skip you for right now. Congratulations. Billy, you're up.
Okay, I'll do question 6. Which
Okay.
employee typically reports directly to a board of directors, and that's the CEO or the chief executive officer.
Okay.
Because they're elected by it, and then it's kind of like a check and balance type deal, so they don't have too much
Okay.
power or anything.
Exactly. So the CEO is the person that most often speaks to a board of directors. Okay, because all of the information flows up to the CEO, who then has to explain it to, again, why did we do what we did? Okay, so what would I expect a chief, okay, and I'm going to open this one up to anybody. What would I expect a chief privacy officer to do? What is their job? What would you think a chief privacy officer? What would their task or responsibility be? Winter.
Probably just to ensure that everything that, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like an aspect to like employee privacy, customer privacy.
Good.
Like business information privacy, like keeping all of those things like separate and like, I don't know, like protected.
That's exactly it. Yeah, the chief, and I only bring this up because it's a unique term, and I'm not sure if most people know. But a chief privacy officer, their job is security, and maybe even to a degree physical security. But it's how do we protect information? Stuff that's supposed to be private. How do we keep it private? How do we keep our business information private? How do we keep our employee information private? How do we keep our customers and clients' information private? How do I make sure that people who should not have access to it do not access information that we possess? Excellent. Okay. Now, is it possible that the chief legal officer or even a governmental liaison or lobbying director, would it be likely for them to speak with a board of directors? Absolutely. Okay, but would they do it on a regular basis? Probably not. Why not? What's that? Because I've got to see, and the job of the legal officer is to make sure the CEO knows enough to be able to speak intelligently to the board, unless the board wants more specific detail. Okay, so these folks would show up in front of a board of directors, but normally they send that information to the chief executive, who then represents the entire company. Okay? All right, Scott.
Yes.
Which one would you like to answer?
Number 9.
Number 9.
Which of the
Okay.
following are stakeholders? I would say entities and people who are invested and influential in the success of an organization, because that could be like how we were saying earlier, customers or people who supply the business with the things they need to sell to people.
Okay, but the thing is, businesses don't necessarily always sell things. There's lots of different organizations that can have stakeholders, but anybody, entities or people who are invested in the success of an organization. Excellent. Okay, very nicely done. Okay, Anthony, you're up.
Okay, I think I'm going to answer number 16.
Number
Hold on, let me
6. This is the one I've got.
Which of the following is not? Yes.
Okay.
The competitors, because I don't understand why your competitor would be having any shares in, like, if me and you were having a competitive business against each other, why would you want to buy shares in my company to help me?
Well, companies do that all the time. They make investments to make money, even if they're making money off of the success of my competitor. It's crazy, but true. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to do this for me. Define what a diffused stakeholder is.
A diffused shareholder is like, so you have where just like the CEO owns the company, but the diffused one is where like so many other people own the company or have like shares in it.
Okay? So how would a voter be a diffused shareholder?
A voter would be a diffused shareholder because they're not the only voter. Because if they were the only voter, then they wouldn't be a voter. They would just be the owner, and what they think is what would happen.
Okay? So if I'm a taxpayer, i.e. a voter, does that mean that I can go in and say, okay, this tree in Yellowstone National Park belongs to me?
No, you could not say that.
I can't say that. That's an idea of a diffused shareholder. As a taxpayer, I share ownership of the entirety of the United States. But I do not have specific owner rights to any specific part of it. Because my right of ownership is diffused because it is shared jointly with every other person. Right? I cannot go onto an Army base and say, you know what? I have always wanted, well, actually an Air Force base, I cannot go onto an Air Force base and say, I've always wanted an F-15. That baby's mine. Here's my tax receipt. I paid for it. That doesn't work, right? Because we agree that as taxpayers or as voters, we share, but do not have exclusive rights to anything. That is a pretty crazy and radical idea. It was one of the most radical aspects of the United States, because up to that point, how did ownership work? Who owned everything? The government or the king or the queen, right? And then the king or queen would then give out ownership at their discretion. But everything else belonged, at its first original point, everything belonged. And then the king could share that out as they wanted to. And then they could take back ownership at any time. With a diffused state shareholder, like in voting in a democracy, we say that it belongs to the people rather than the government or the state. And this was a pretty revolutionary idea. Okay? All right. Porter. You with us today? Let me check and see if. Okay. Let's go with Megan. Megan, are you here with us today?
Yeah, has number 11 been done?
Number 11 has not.
Okay. So it says which of the following is the most ethical action a company can take if a product does not live up to the manufacturing claims. I think the most correct one would be C, but in order to be the most ethical, I think you have to correct the problem and issue warnings to the customers.
Okay, and so the idea is, what are A and C, or A and D? They are examples, oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, yeah, continue, sorry.
No, you were about to answer and I need to shut up.
No, I was just gonna, never mind.
No, you're right, you were right. A and D are examples of letter C, right? I can correct the problem. I can issue a warning. Those are examples of, I would probably say D is more an example of an ethical minimum. But if I put out a warning and I go and pay to fix the product, right? And then I also go and say, you know what, I'm going to register you for a year of Equifax to check your credit rating because this product released your private information and you're open to identity theft. That idea of ethical maximum, what is the best possible solution I can give to customers in this situation? What's the difference between that and an ethical minimum? Anybody?
Say
What is it?
The ethical minimum, especially like with the Samsung example, would have been if they would have just stopped at warning the customers, hey, this thing might tip over, and then they called it good, because then they could technically argue that in court. Say a kid did, they could say, hey, we warned them, kids should have stayed away. And they would have been right by the law maybe, but that definitely would have been doing the minimum.
Okay, so what might be an example of a legal minimum? If the ethical minimum is sending out a warning saying, hey, these things could tip over, what might be an example of a legal minimum?
I think doing nothing.
Well, I might put a sticker on the side of everybody's seen stickers on the machine that says this has a possibility of tipping over. Before you even buy the product, I put that thing on there, right? Every pillow comes with a massive number of tags that say, hey, we tried to treat this to prevent fire. Please don't smoke in bed, right? And everybody promptly does what when you buy a pillow? You rip them off even though it says, penalty of law, do not remove this thing, right? That's the legal minimum, is including a warning before you sell it. An ethical minimum is, we've come to realize there's this new problem, we're going to tell you about it. An ethical maximum is, not only are we going to tell you we did something wrong, we're going to do what we need to fix it. Okay, excellent. Okay, Kason. Kason there. Okay, Jackson.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. I was worried.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. The question I wanted to do was number 49.
Okay. Gonna make me
Sorry,
scroll up.
48.
48. I'm gonna scroll all the way
48.
down there. All right.
Why is the ethical minimum insufficient in cases of product failure? And so what I have for my answer is that the ethical minimum, basically, like, it's not just like the legal minimum of, well, you can't sue us because it happened, but the ethical minimum when products are failing kind of sends a message of, thanks for your money, we don't actually care about you or that you had this problem, see you next time, kid. That's kind of the feel that comes off, is they're saying, we're glad you paid us money, don't lose your money to us like that in the future. But like the washing machines having problems and stuff, and then they're just like, oh well, we have a warning on it, so good luck.
Okay.
But when products are actually failing, if you go through the process of actually like refunding things, doing a recall, then people realize that you actually care about them, the people whose money is supporting you.
Okay. Right. So ethical minimums this is the least responsible thing that we can do in this situation above what the legal standard is. And it tends to not satisfy stakeholders or consumers, especially if the product is failing due to something on the manufacturer's part.
I have
So
an
for
example.
example, okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I bought a car, and it was a few years old, but there's a manufacturer's problem with the airbags. And if you were to have the airbags go off, metal spikes would basically impale you. And the odds of dying because the airbags was actually pretty high. Well, I drove that
Yeah.
car for at least 6 months, and I actually had a car accident, but none of the airbags went off. And so after that, a few months after I had an accident in that car, I had a passenger with me, which could have got me in a lot of legal trouble if those airbags went off like that. But then I got a letter saying, "Oh, by the way, your airbags could kill people, just so you know." And so I was
Right.
pretty not happy with it.
Okay, so for example, Toyota and the Tabata airbag. I'm not sure if that was the exact product you were talking about, but Autoliv, is it Autoliv or Autoliv, in northern Utah around Brigham City, was one of the sub distributors that were making those things. And my brother-in-law worked there for a while. So these are not just things that happen in some factory in China or India. These things happen here in the United States within 100 miles of where we live right now.
Well, another example is like the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 and how it exploded.
Yeah, it's just sending people, I mean, especially since the Galaxy 7 at the time was one of the premier Samsung products.
Yeah, it was like the new big thing.
It was the new big thing. It was the new iPhone. And so for it to explode, if all Samsung did was, yes, you paid $500, back in the day when a cell phone only cost $500. You just bought this brand new flagship product for $500. Please understand that the battery can explode. Sorry, I used to, there's it was one of the anti-smoking commercials. It shows these three people standing up on a bridge, and man, if you really want to live, you need to have a can explode. And they would bungee jump off of this thing and grab this can of soda, and the first two people do it, and they're just kind of, it contains 300% of the caffeine and 300% of the carbonation. And the third guy jumps off the bridge, grabs it, and it explodes. And the other two look at each other and go, "Oh." And the commercial says only one product kills 1/3 of the people that use it. As an example of an ethical minimum argument against smoking. Okay. Let's see, Zach.
So I'm going to go with number 40.
Number 40. Thank you for staying close to where I already was.
Yes, sir. It says,
Okay.
describe the steps in the, do you pronounce it MITRE?
I think it's MITRE.
Okay. Stakeholder process and provide an example. So their process is kind of like they establish some trust with their customers and then gather and analyze the appropriate data for them. An example I would say would be kind of like Amazon. Amazon, at least for me, they've always been awesome at taking back stuff that I don't need or stuff that's broken. They'll take back my returns. And then their search engine within their website seems to like anything that they bring up related items to like what I search for, and they'll give me good deals on different things. And I feel like that's how they would gather and analyze the appropriate data for me personally.
Okay. I think of Costco, for example. Costco takes just about anything back. No questions asked. They will refund it in the way you want it. And then they'll ask you information about why you're returning it so that they can determine, is this a product that is likely to fail? Do we need to pull it off our shelves because there's a product flaw? And that they will cover, they basically give their own warranty that's longer than the manufacturer in a lot of cases. Okay, excellent. All right, Logan.
Do number 30.
Number 30.
Yeah, so the most important function of a board of directors is to hire the president or chief executive officer. So I think in general, their most important function would be to keep the company and business running efficiently, obviously. But within this, yes, the most important thing would be to hire a qualified and proficient president or chief executive to be on the job physically and maintaining employee and even customer interaction and participation.
Okay, I agree with that. The overall purpose of the board of directors is to keep the business running, but the best way that they do that is by hiring the person who manages day-to-day operations of the company. Okay? Excellent. Jack.
So going off of that, I'll just do 31. All companies must have a board of directors. This is not true because that's generally only for larger companies, larger businesses. And sometimes small businesses, you know, it could just be a CEO who is also in charge of coming up with what the mission is and coming up with profitability goals and things like that. It doesn't need a board of directors.
Okay. The idea of the board of directors is a group of people who are not connected to the day-to-day operations, who are giving basically an outside-in perspective. In most small businesses, they don't have that luxury. The CEO is also the chief bottle washer, the chief potato peeler, and if I'm running a food truck, it's very unlikely I'm going to be making all the decisions. I'm making the hiring and firing, I'm making the ordering, I'm making sales and marketing. I have to do everything. So board of directors tends to represent companies that need external over-the-shoulder examination. Excellent. Thanks, Jack. All right, Josh.
Number 29.
Number 29.
All stakeholders must be treated the same. It's false.
Okay.
And the reason why I said that is because you'll treat your employees different from your customers.
Okay.
Where you'll also expect greater things from your employees than from your customers and hold them to a higher standard.
Okay.
So.
And vendors are treated differently than employees. There are some people that I pay directly. There are other people that I pay them for their products or their services. Okay, so not all stakeholders do the same things for a company. Okay, excellent. Okay, Kyle.
Hi there. Has number 7 been answered yet?
That's a wonderful question. I will tell you in just a second. The answer is no, it has not.
I think number 7 is A, B, and C, but not D.
Okay, why is that?
I read it.
That's an excellent reason. Anybody want to try to extrapolate? Why would it be that a CEO would hire people to manage finance, marketing, legal, compliance, but not dining and food service?
Because it deals more with like a one-on-one thing with the public versus having him up in the corporate office working towards making sure like all the legal documents, marketing, all their advertisement, making sure everywhere has enough financing versus making sure you're keeping your customers happy, which would be more of a like store level kind of situation, like having stores make those decisions.
Okay, yeah, so dining and food services tends to be an area of focus that would be too specific for a chief executive officer. The chief executive officer hires management to oversee those things. Okay, so they wouldn't be hiring dining and food service folks, but they would be hiring folks to manage major aspects of the corporation. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go back and see, is Porter online?
Wait,
Okay,
do I get credit or do I got to go back and ask another question?
Porter, is that Porter that's talking?
No, Kyle.
Nope, not yet. I'll get back to you, but right now I want to make sure that Porter and Kaysen, if they're on, I want to ask them a question to give them a chance to get credit. Speak now. Okay. All right. You know what? Just because we normally go in first order, do we want to go, just keep going in first order? I asked Andrew. Okay, so we're gonna go with Haley first. Because Haley's going, man, I'm getting left out. You make one nice comment on perusal and you get hosed during class. Okay, so Haley, which one would you like to do?
I am going to do number 17.
Okay, just know that Cattell is very put out with you. Okay,
And
go
I
for
can answer number 39.
No, she's good with 17.
Okay. So what was the reason for Scarlett Johansson's withdrawal from a recent movie? From what I read, I got that her portrayal of the character offended stakeholders because they wanted a transgender person to portray the role since that was the character that she was going to bring to life.
Okay.
And as a stakeholder, they have an interest in the company for reasons other than stock. So Scarlett Johansson just appreciated the diversity and representation in the film is what she said. And she wanted to make sure that the right person was going to do the portrayal.
Okay. And so this is one of the ways that stakeholders, not just shareholders, can affect business decisions. So what is the difference between shareholders and stakeholders?
A shareholder can be a stakeholder, but stakeholders are not always shareholders.
Okay.
So a stakeholder has interest in the company, or let me see.
Nope, you're right.
A shareholder has financial interest in the company, where a stakeholder does not have financial interest in the company.
Might not.
Might not.
Okay. The idea of a shareholder is it's not just that they have a financial interest in the company, because most stakeholders have a financial interest in the company. The difference is a shareholder has an ownership interest in the company. By holding a share, they own a portion of the business. Whereas a stakeholder might be interested in the company doing well, but they don't necessarily own part of the company. So if we look at GameStop, right, that's all over the news right now. Would Sony Corporation be a stakeholder or a shareholder in GameStop?
Could be both.
Could be both. It could be both. But most likely, shareholder or stakeholder? Stakeholder. Why? What is Sony's interest in GameStop that we know of?
GameStop sells their product.
GameStop sells their product. So if GameStop is open, Sony is able to have an extra place to market its product. Okay? What about the kid who got the parents bought him a penny share in GameStop for his birthday? And now all of a sudden he's going, man, I'm going to college.
Shareholder.
He's a shareholder, right? Because he has an ownership interest, however big or small, in how GameStop does. Okay? Sony, being a stakeholder, wants GameStop to do well. But Sony has other means and venues of selling its product. So if GameStop goes out of business, that doesn't help Sony, but it doesn't destroy how Sony works. But it's still a stakeholder, right? Okay. All right, Tanner.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So I'm looking at number 22.
Number 22.
I think that might be into the next bit of reading.
No, I remember seeing that today.
Oh, all right.
Oh,
well,
maybe I read the whole thing. I don't know.
Okay, so what are some amenities companies offer employees that go beyond a legal minimum or even perhaps industry standards? Select all that apply. I would say that A and D, discounted company stock and company discounts, are beyond the legal minimums.
Okay. So why is salary? Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No. Well, to answer your question, like a salary, like that's their wages, and so like that. I mean, granted, I think you have to give your employees wages. You don't necessarily have to give them a salary. Salary, you're trusting your employee to actually work the 40 hours, but and you're still required to compensate them for their work.
Okay.
But a company discount, they don't have to give you a discount to their store if you work for them. They don't have to give you any stock technically.
So what about C? Where does C fit in?
C, that's a touchy subject. Because like I believe that if they're a full-time employee, you're required to provide some sort of way to get them health insurance or something equivalent.
Okay. I don't know if they are required to give you health insurance. A lot of folks that I know that work for corporations are just given money, an additional stipend, and then you have to go out and find your own insurance. Okay. Now, is that a legal minimum? Am I required to give my employees health insurance?
I thought so, but now that you asked
If they
that,
work over 20 hours.
Okay. I think that, what's that?
I always thought it was required by law if you work 40 hours or more.
I think it's over part-time, and most of the time that's 30 or 32 hours.
Yeah.
But
So
I think that in a lot,
time,
it might be more of an industry standard than a legal requirement. But I can't speak to that. I'm not a health insurance professional. Yeah.
Depends on the size of the company too, doesn't it, and how many employees they have. If you have so many more employees, then I think it puts the company in a different bracket where they do have to provide.
Right, for example, we've heard about the mom and pop shop, right? Mom and pop shops probably are small enough that they are not required to provide healthcare benefits like larger corporations would. Okay, so I think that's where we get into that idea of the industry standard. This is just what all the companies that are in this industry, this is the normal practice versus this is a legal requirement. Okay, all right, Caden, or no, Winter. No, Cattell. I haven't gotten to, I did James, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have the old paper, so it looks like 21.
Number 21, okay. All right, which of the following best relates to prioritizing stakeholders? Okay.
It says, according to Donaldson, precedent learning behavior approaches to stakeholder planning. So I think descriptive descriptive, instrumental, and normative, and descriptive.
Okay, so that's number 25. Yep. Okay, so one more time.
According to Donaldson and Preston, what are the 3 theoretical approaches to considering stakeholder claims?
Okay.
And I picked descriptive approach, instrumental approach, and normative approach.
Okay.
And the descriptive is the lowest level. We kind of put them in the level, different levels. That would be the lowest level.
Okay.
The normative is the comprehensive view.
Okay.
And instrumental. I can't read my own writing. Connects management and financial outcomes. Contributes to the positive bottom line.
Okay. So let's define what a descriptive approach is. You said it's the lowest level, but what does that mean? What is it? Can someone define it for me? Not everybody at once. I know you're all anxious. Okay, what about normative? Okay, so let's take a look in the book. Move this over for just a second. Okay, so we're on page 83. Okay, a descriptive approach, instrumental approach, and a normative approach. The descriptive approach sees the company as composed of various stakeholder groups, each with its own interests. These interests impinge on the company to a greater or lesser degree. Thus, the main point of the descriptive approach is to develop the most accurate model and act on it in ways that weigh and balance these interests as fairly as possible. That's fantastic, but what in the blank does that mean? That's a lot of words.
Would it be just like kind of a way to balance what interests should be prioritized?
Okay, so it's the most basic. The descriptive is just saying who are our stakeholders and what interests do they have? And then I use that to help me figure out, well, who's going to be the most important? Well, I have to know who they are and what their interest is. So literally all I'm trying to do is just describe and identify who they are. That's why it would be the most basic. I'm just trying to make sure I know who my stakeholders are and what interest and how their interest affects the company. And then I address them based on, if I know all of them, then I can try to start making a decision that best meets as many people as possible. What does that sound like from an ethical model? If I know everybody that's involved, then I'm going to try to treat as many of them as fairly as I can. That's utilitarian. Now I use the word fairly, but it's probably more utilitarian. I'm going to try to balance their needs as much as possible. That's more of a utilitarian, but there's elements of justice in there. Okay, so now let's talk about the instrumental approach. What does the instrumental approach do? Okay, this is what Cattell read. The idea that it connects stakeholder management and financial outcomes, proposing that appropriate management of stakeholder interests is important and useful because it contributes to a positive bottom line. Basically, the idea that I realize that good customer service is good business because why is good customer service good business? because they're more likely to do more business with me, which leads to a better positive bottom line. So the idea is that I'm using these stakeholders as a
Because if you
means to an end. Okay, go, sorry. Somebody was talking,
Oh,
but
I
I
was
didn't.
just saying that if you treat your customers right, they're going to want to come back and keep doing business with you. And,
Yes.
And they could spread the word and be like, oh, hey, this was really good to me. You should go there.
Okay, and so the idea is the instrumental approach means I'm using them as a means to an end. I'm going to treat them well because if I do, then they are more likely to spend money here. Right? Which is, at least, what does that do? What benefit does that give the stakeholder? They're going to be treated well. I'm not treating them well because I want to or because I think that it's a good idea. It's because it's good for business. Okay, now let's compare that with the normative concept. The normative concept considers stakeholders as ends in themselves rather than simply as means to achieve better financial results. So what does that mean? What's that? Okay, I treat all stakeholders, that treating stakeholders well is my business. That if I take care of the people, the sales will take care of themselves. That's the normative concept, is I don't treat people nice just so they spend money in my store. I treat them nice because that's what they deserve. And if I do that, then it's going to result in the kinds of things that I want. Okay, so classic example. I read a meme on Facebook, which I think is Facebook's greatest contribution to society. About the only great contribution that social media has made. And it said, just remember, the next time you go to a Little League game, it's unlikely that you're going to see Amazon.com on the back of a kid's jersey. What does that mean? Does anybody understand what that meme is talking about? Most Little Leagues cannot afford on their own to operate. The cost is too prohibitive, it's too high. So what do they often do? They look for corporates, they look for sponsors, right? Now, most Little Leagues, when they're looking for sponsors, are they going to get corporate sponsors? Probably not. The majority of sponsors are going to be local. Now, I can make the argument that investing in sponsoring a Little League team could be instrumental. Why?
Well, it gets your name out there when you sponsor them.
Okay, so actually it can be described at each of the three levels. It can be descriptive, it can be instrumental, and it can be normative. So if it's instrumental, I'm doing it because it's good advertising. Right? That's an instrumental approach or an instrumental perspective. What would a descriptive perspective be, or a descriptive approach? Why would a company sponsor a Little League team? Now remember, what is descriptive?
They would sponsor a little league team because their customers have kids on the team.
Exactly. I'm sponsoring this team because it's made up of the kids of my employees or the kids of specific customers. It's the company softball team. And that's why we're doing it, because these people are stakeholders. Okay, so then what would the normative approach be to the Little League team? Why would they sponsor it?
For the sake of helping them.
Because they are members of the community and they recognize that helping support sports or high schools or whatever is good for the community, whether or not they make any money out of it or not. That it's a social responsibility, right? This is where we get into that concept of CSR, or corporate social responsibility. This idea that if I am a member of the community, if I can contribute to the community, that's a good thing. Courtesy Ford tends to support the 4th of July fireworks. Descriptive. What is the benefit? Why would Courtesy Ford do that from a descriptive perspective?
People watching fireworks by cars.
That's not a descriptive. That is a instrumental. I do it because I want to watch fireworks, or because our employees want to see fireworks. Okay? Instrumental, the odds are if we can sell X number of cars, then we'll put on the fireworks display. That's very clearly instrumental. Normative would say, we live in Pocatello, we're grateful for the United States, and we want to celebrate the United States, even if we don't get any benefit from it whatsoever, even though you'll see here the Courtesy Ford fireworks display, right? Normative says, I treat the people as, or stakeholders, as ends of themselves. Helping them is the purpose, not the means to the purpose. Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. Have we gone through everybody? Nope, we've still got 2 more. Winter.
Okay. Order number 45, in what ways do customers express their views about trust of company goods and services? On social media and online, like review platforms, and they can also speak to like management about their problems.
Okay, so Yelp, right? Amazon, all of these companies allow customers to give feedback. And how many of you have made a decision about a purchase or a product based on what other people have had to say? My wife hates it when I want to buy a new phone. Because seriously, it's embarrassing how much time I will go into comparing all of these different, because I always end up finding the one model that nobody, so for example, this phone is a Moto G7. The only freaking phone that they do not have a cover anywhere from here to Idaho Falls. They have every other brand, every other model except for this one. Because I spent so much freaking time looking into it that this was the phone I wanted to get, and then I had to go and order it off of Amazon because I couldn't find the cover. All right? How else might customers display their trust?
Recommending it to
Mhm.
people.
How many times have you gone to a restaurant because somebody recommended it to you, or watched a film or a TV show? I heard about that. Wasn't sure if I was going to. If you like it, okay. Excellent. All right. Caden, you're last.
All right.
What do you got?
Well, all the ones that I had have been answered. Has anyone done number 5?
Let's see. Number 5. No, you are in luck.
Okay, so it says, which of the following is not a stakeholder of a nonprofit business? So a stakeholder is someone that, or someone's affected by the company.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, we've got community, competitors, media, public policy. I'm torn between media and public policy on this one. I'm gonna say public policy.
It's not a wasp, it's a, is that one? Yeah. Why is it not a competitor? What's the definition of a nonprofit business?
Oh, it might be a competitor.
The answer to this is competitor because they don't have competitors.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make money.
I didn't think about the nonprofit part.
Yep, that's a key part of it.
Okay.
I know is if a nonprofit has a competitor that takes their business and then they cannot be a nonprofit because they don't have enough demands to even be a nonprofit business with that technically be competition.
So if somebody's selling a product that I was giving away for free because I was having funding coming from some other place.
Well, even if you were selling, like if you just have two businesses that were providing the same service and all of the business was going towards this company, this company could instead boom because they just weren't having any demand for them.
Well, normally the idea of nonprofit is it's providing a public good that's being paid for something out rather than just by profit. So normally so I might have so for example, a hospital. I can have a for-profit hospital that's built somewhere near, so for example, Bingham County versus Portneuf. Portneuf is a nonprofit, right? It has a budget, it makes money, but it's not trying to find money. But when Bingham really started growing, all of a sudden you saw the demand for Portneuf decrease. Okay, so last thing, just really quickly, because I know you guys got to go. I will have this posted so that everybody, when you do the next reading, you can know which questions have already been answered. So, but what I need to do really quickly, the random numbers. We've got, hold on a second, let me write these down. We've got 10. We have 13 and 15. Wow. Okay, those didn't feel really random, to be honest with you.
Caden's 15.
Caden's 15. Let's see what we got here. So we got Caden is 15. We've got Jackson, that one counts. And then Megan. Okay, so I'll do one more. I'm good with that. All right, so random number generator, number 19, generates. Number 11, jeez. If you were in the middle, you're doing well today. So let's see, who was that? That was Kaysen, and it wasn't here. I will post one more, and then I'll just post that in the announcements to let you guys know who that was. All right, everybody take care. Thank you so much, and we will see you all on Thursday.
See ya.